What is up, guys? Welcome to another beautiful Sunday morning here in Virginia, and I have another video for you guys. I've been looking on YouTube, and there's been a lot of people who've actually been doing a lot of videos doing comparisons of expensive and cheap products. Anything ranging from, cars, hotels, pets, food, you name it. So today, since my channel is dedicated to hair transplants and hair loss, I actually wanted to do a comparison of one of the most expensive hair transplants versus some of the cheapest hair transplants that I was actually able to find. So I will be comparing a couple different hair transplants, anywhere ranging from $25,000 USD to as cheap as $2,500 USD. And to keep this consistent, I've been looking at people who've actually been suffering from hair loss, moderate hair loss, somewhere between a normal 2 to a normal 3, and anywhere ranging from about 2,500 grafts to 3,000 grafts via FUE. So hopefully in this video, you guys will be able to visualize the differences between an expensive and a cheap hair transplant, and come into realization that not all expensive hair transplants are going to yield fantastic results, and that not all cheap hair transplants are actually going to give you a bad result. It really depends where you go and who you go to. And so let's get started. This doctor here is actually based out in California, and this video was actually one of the very first ones that I saw when I was considering a hair transplant. Now, this was back in when I was around my early 20s, and this was actually one of the first videos that I saw. But this actually is a result of a very good hair transplant. The guy underwent an FUE procedure with over 3,000 grafts that cost him somewhere between $22,000 to $25,000. And as you guys know, the US is probably one of the most expensive places to get an FUE. This doctor was one that I really wanted to get a hair transplant because his results were very realistic and natural. And the guy, from his before pictures, looked pretty similar to what my hair loss situation was. And I just felt hopeful that I can achieve the same results as this guy did. Now, obviously, the price of this procedure was way out of my budget, and this doctor is a very aggressive doctor when it comes to rebuilding the hairline. And while many people are against the low hairline, he obviously can do a great job and make it very natural looking. And what he did was he reinforced the hairline with singles in the front and multi-grafts behind it to give a nice, dense, and adolescent looking hairline. And he also gives us a good up-close and undistorted image of the hairline, unlike a lot of doctors who play with lighting. They add in other stuff into the hairline to make it look dense. But obviously it is quite an expensive procedure compared to the majority of the hair transplant costs nowadays. But his results and his artistic ability to recreate natural looking hairlines command a pricey hair transplant, and for those who can afford such an extravagant procedure, it may well be worth it. So this next clip is an individual, probably about a normal 2, who underwent about 2,500 grafts via FUE. And he spent somewhere around $20,000 to $24,000, and as you guys can tell, he did not get such a great result as the one before. This person was obviously thinning in the frontal hairline as well as the temples, and he really lacked density all throughout his scalp. And the after results of his hair transplant, in my opinion, I don't think it looks realistic at all, and it's not natural because the frontal hairline has multi-grafts that look very pluggy and dull-like. And the density is also lacking despite this guy having 2,500 grafts implanted just for the hairline zone. I do like the hairline design, although some of you guys might say that it's a little bit too straight. But the hairline design is okay in my opinion. It's just the fact that the hairline looks just so unnatural. And honestly, there isn't much difference from the before and after results. And I would say that this is actually a good example of a bad hair transplant where this guy spent an insane amount of money resulting in a poor result. So clearly, not all expensive hair transplants will give you spectacular results. This next video is a guy who looks like to be a normal 3, and he has actually undergone 2,800 grafts via FUE in Turkey and spent a whopping total of $2,500 USD. So $2,500 for 2,800 grafts is extremely cheap, and this is why a lot of people end up going to places like Turkey to get their hair transplants, since it's very affordable. As far as results, you can judge for yourselves, but I think this result is fantastic for $2,500 USD. Just look at how dense and natural his hairline is looking, and the doctor did such a great job with the hairline design and implanting singles in the front and reinforcing the hairline with multis in the back to create an awesome looking hairline, and this actually looks very natural. This doctor did a great job, I think, just for $2,500 USD, and this is one heck of a deal that you will not be able to find in the US. Alright, so this last video is an example of a poorly done hair transplant. This guy's about 25 years old. He is a Norwood 3 who underwent about 2,500 grafts via FUE in India. India is also another place where it's very affordable. From these pictures, you can see that the temples are receded and he has a very high forehead, which actually makes his hair loss look worse. The photos after a 16-month procedure looks horrible, in my opinion, because even at that distance where the pictures were taken, we can clearly see how plugged his hairline is, and this is because multi-grafts were used in the frontal hairline, and it just makes it look very doll-like and pluggy. The hairline design is also too straight. It kind of resembles a V-shape, and I think for those who have no knowledge about hair transplants, you guys can even detect that this guy has had a botched procedure even a mile away. This guy spent a total of $2,500 USD, and this obviously shows that you get what you pay for, and this is actually one of the examples where if you do decide to go to a cheap doctor, you will get cheap results. Not all expensive hair transplants will give you good results, and not all cheap hair transplants are going to give you bad results. It really depends on the skill of the doctor in the clinic, and this is why you guys want to do a lot of good research online and just looking at photos, talking to people on forums who've actually undergone hair transplants with various doctors before getting a hair transplant. This video does show that there are doctors who do charge a hefty price when it comes to hair transplants, and in order for you to get good hair transplant, but you can also just as likely get a pretty good hair transplant for a fraction of the cost that actually look natural. So some of the things that can actually influence the cost of a hair transplant is obviously going to be the skill of the doctor, the cost of living. If you were to get something in the US versus India or Turkey, it's definitely going to be a lot more expensive here in the US because the cost of living is more expensive. And even as far as like the salary for the doctors here in the US make an insane number or insane amount of money in the US just doing any type of cosmetic surgery versus doctors in India or Turkey where they don't make as much as the doctors here in the US. It also depends on the demand of the doctor, how much people want to go to him to get the procedure done. Obviously, if you have a higher demand of services, then you can upcharge and then charge more money for your services. But like I said, prices should not be the only factor when you guys are determining to get a hair transplant. You really have to look into the whole picture and weigh in the skill of the doctor and also the skill of the clinic as well, because there's a lot of technicians, especially if you go to a foreign country to get your hair transplants. A lot of the technicians will actually do the whole implanting. So you really have to look into the doctors and also the technicians who may or may not do the actual implanting. So in conclusion, I feel like nowadays you guys should not be spending $25,000 just for an FUE, hair transplant. There's a lot of good, highly qualified hair transplant doctors who don't charge an arm and a leg just for a procedure. And the fact that a lot of the hair transplant procedures, the costs have actually gone down. So there's no real reason that you guys should be paying $25,000 for an FUE procedure unless you really, really want to go to that doctor. The doctor is very reputable and he has a stellar results of a good hair transplant, natural looking hair transplant. And like I said, just because you spend more money on a hair transplant does not mean that you are going to get a better result than somebody who's actually paid less. The main thing that you want to achieve in a hair transplant is going to be naturalness, and that degree of naturalness ultimately comes down to the frontal hairline. Obviously, other areas behind the hairline is going to be just as important, such as the crown. But the hairline is where everyone sees you. It's pretty much what frames your face, and it's kind of like the first thing that people see when they look at your hair. And so if you end up getting a bad hair transplant, the results, due to a multi-graft into the hairline instead of using singles, or if the hairline just looks way too straight and it just looks unnatural, it's going to be a dead giveaway that you've actually had a bad hair transplant done by a doctor who was incompetent. And you also end up spending more money later down the road just because you have to fix the botched up hair transplant, and then you're also going to end up using finite number of grafts. You're going to exhaust them, and then you're not going to have enough left over if you do end up suffering from a more severe form of hair loss later down the road. So there's my 2 cents on it. If you guys like this video, make sure to smash that like button. I actually had fun doing this video because it really showed me that, money isn't everything. Just because you have more money or you pay more money for a hair transplant does not mean that you're going to get the best results. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any questions, make sure to leave me some comments below. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.